piece of advice I would always give, specifically for Waterloo engineering, the things that I've seen is what can you show and bring to the table that shows that you will be a good engineer and that you are a well-rounded individual at the end of the day.
You're now listening to Season 3 of Spark After Hours, where we sit down to chat with STEM professionals every Sunday. If you like this episode, consider following us on Spotify and Instagram at Spark Hacks. We hope you enjoy.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Anushka.
And my name is Azka, and we will be
today
for today's episode of Spark After Hours. Today we have an incredible guest with us, an inspiring mechatronics engineering student and a passionate advocate for positive change. Her journey is nothing short of inspiring, from impactful leadership roles on campus at the University of Waterloo to internships with tech giants like Splunk, RBC, and KPMG.
So today we're going to be diving into Andrea's experiences, insights, and the exciting projects she's been working on. So welcome, Andrea. Feel free to introduce yourself and let us know a little about who you are and what you've been working on.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name is Andrea, and as you mentioned, I am a mechatronics engineering grad from the University of Waterloo. Currently working as an intern at Splunk before I go in to do my master's in systems design engineering in January. And apart from, I guess, some of like my academic or co-op experiences you've shared about, I do a lot of volunteering and volunteer with many different organizations. I started the first ever Women in Engineering undergraduate student committee at the University of Waterloo. And I currently sit on the Girl Guides of Canada's board of directors as the director chair of the National Youth Council. But apart from that, love reading, traveling, going on morning walks and hikes and things like that. So very excited to be here and to be able to share my story with you all.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you on. And so we'll just dive right into the interview questions then. Why did you choose to study mechatronics in particular? And was it what you always wanted to do since you were in high school?
Not at all. I think mechatronics kind of came to me as a fluke. I At some point in my life or during my high school career, I knew that I wanted to do something or another that had an impact. Like being able to positively impact somebody with the work that I'm doing was very important to me. And it's basically because I was a member of Girl Guides of Canada for so long, and I think that element of volunteerism stuck with me. But I also wanted to do something technical. Like I loved math and science, and I think the best mix of the two would be engineering, which is why I went down that field. When it comes to mechatronics, I kind of chose it because I didn't know what I wanted to do. At Waterloo Engineering, you have to choose your stream like right from the get-go. Otherwise, you kind of, depending on what program you're in, have to go back from the beginning. And so I wanted to choose something that was interdisciplinary, something that I could, for example, if I hated the mechanical side, I could stick to the computer. Spoiler alert, that is what happened. I'm not the best mechanical engineer out there, but mechatronics, yes. So that's really why I chose mechatronics engineering. It was a mix of the best of the passions that I had, and then it allowed me to explore different types of engineering versus sticking to one right from the get-go.
All right, that's awesome. That sounds really great. So I guess I think you already answered this, but was there anything specific that sparked your interest in like engineering, or especially like engineering at Waterloo? Because I know there are a lot of different options out there.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good question. I think when it came to sparking my interest, again, like it was based upon the fact that I wanted to do good in this world. And I know that's a very, I would say, positive, rosy outlook on life, but I really do believe that I think if you can manifest it, that it'll happen at some point in your life. When it came down to choosing Waterloo, it was mainly because of the co-op program. I think in this day and age, being so competitive in the workplace and the economy being a little bit not so fun at the moment, having that extra 2 years of work experience really sets you apart, and it lets you explore. You aren't set to a specific type of role or a specific company. You get to explore, and I think that was a huge game changer when it comes to figuring out what it is that you really want to be doing for the rest of your life, or figuring out, what suits you best, whether it's like a small company or a big company, whether it's a super technical project or maybe you don't want as technical of a role. What does that look like for you? And I think co-op really helps you discover that.
Absolutely. Like gaining that world experience really like helps you like further explore your own interests as well, and then actually like just gain that experience. And
Exactly.
also, congratulations on receiving the Pearl Sullivan Emerging Global Leaders Award this year from the University of Waterloo Faculty of Engineering. What motivated you to focus on enabling youth to find their passions and advocating for the involvement of girls and other young women in STEM?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I don't know. I think for me, as a kid growing up, I never was told that I needed to do a certain type of field. I was kind of left to my own devices on like, you can do whatever you want. Obviously, there was a bit of an emphasis on and choosing something a little bit more technical. But I would say that the more that I sat in engineering in my classes and the more that I was like one of the very few girls in classes, the more I realized how important it is to start the love and passion for STEM at a young age. And I think for most girls and women, I think when I have conversations of like, oh, I just didn't even know about STEM, or people who particularly aren't involved in STEM, there's a lot of people who are just like, yeah, I just was never exposed to it. It was something that the cool girls never did. And I think the more that I volunteered with engineering outreach at the University of Waterloo, the more that I saw how impactful kind of having these types of programs is, the more I decided to put a lot more emphasis onto it. So I think when it came down to choosing what I wanted to use the award on, it was what had impacted me, and then using that money to then impact other women and girls to do the same.
All right, that's amazing. I feel like personally, like I'm trying to go into STEM as well, and I've noticed that there's such like a weird, like not a barrier, but like a weird stereotype around it. Like I've noticed my
Right.
class sizes being more male dominated, and I guess like again, like programs like these are really incredible because personally for me, like I didn't want to touch engineering with like a 10-foot pole. Like I wanted to stay
Yeah.
away from it as far as I could, and then it was programs like these that actually really like showed me, I guess, the different possibilities in a career like this
Yeah.
that weren't just sitting behind a computer.
Exactly. No, I totally see your point. And I think there's a lot of other girls and young women, specifically now, who feel the exact same way. So totally agree.
All right, awesome. So now diving a little bit deeper into that. So looking back at your undergraduate degree, how was your involvement in leadership and other extracurricular activities and like volunteering as well? How did that shape your personal and professional growth, which obviously led to this incredible award?
For me, I think I personally have always just been put into a lot of extracurricular activities. And I blame my parents for this because and I will publicly say this on record, as a child, I was always put into different activities to keep me busy and to like learn new skills, which I think, number one, I was blessed to have those opportunities because I don't think
Mhm.
everybody is. So I know that it's definitely a very privileged thing to have. But also, I think that kind of started this interest of like trying new things and like volunteering and like trying different activities and always keeping busy doing things that aren't just school. Because yes, school is important, being book smart is important, but I think everything else and all the other lessons you learn in life come from meeting different people, doing extracurriculars, and just like putting yourself in situations that are different. Like I took badminton classes and like basketball classes way back when I was a kid. Never stuck with sports. Sports are not my thing now, but I think that taught me like, it's okay to like not be good at something, but you can put yourself out there. And when it comes to volunteering as well, I think, it's always, I think, something that people do not take seriously. I think people are just like, oh, like there's no money in volunteering, which, yes, there
Mhm.
is no money in volunteering. It's you giving up your time. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're supporting somebody else's life goals or dreams or aspirations, or you're helping them in a way that, is very valuable to them. So it's a very meaningful thing to have within your life as well. And I think when it comes from a leadership experience perspective, um, I was a Don in my fourth year of engineering, which is very rare, I think, for a lot of engineering students because it is your fourth year. You want to have fun with your friends. The reason I took this job is because I think there's a lot of power in being able to mentor other students and to be able to guide them along their journey and to be there every step of the way. And I encourage everyone to take on leadership experiences like that. Maybe not as, I would say, time consuming or kind of grand as a daunting role would have, but still being able to put yourself in situations where you're meeting new people and learning about new lived experiences, because I think that also contributes a lot to the person that you are, and the impact that you have on the people around you and the jobs or the work that you do in the future.
Absolutely. And building off of that, your volunteer work also extends to organizations like Girl Guides of Canada. How has your experience with Girl Guides in particular influenced your views on mentorship and the role of community engagement in shaping the aspirations of young girls?
Ooh, I think Girl Guides for me is basically my life. Like I've been a member since I was 6 years old. And I really credit that organization to the leader that I believe that I've become. And the reason I take on the roles that I do. And I say this because when I was, I think it was like 14, I had two leaders who were like, Andrea, you would be so great on this youth council. You should definitely apply, and like we'll support you every step of the way. And I think that was that first step that I took to taking on leadership style roles. It was a mixture of that, and then I have one of my phys ed teachers who had made me the CEO of the athletic council way back when I had, again, I have not a lot of like sports ability, but I think those key moments kind of impacted the leadership that I felt like I could have. And so when it comes to Girl Guides specifically, having those individuals root for you and saying like you can make a positive impact with the opinions and views and the diversity that you bring to the table really shaped, I think, the rest of my leadership journey. And then in terms of mentorship as well, and the way that I interact with the local community, as well as kind of like my global community now that I work on the board, I think it really has shaped the person that I've become, in the sense of now I can see things from a whole different lens, and I can see this organization from a different lens as well. It's really funny because now it's like a roundabout moment where as my job on the board of directors, I now have the opportunity to mentor those same individuals, that same group of youth that I once was, which I think is very empowering, and I think teaches you a lot about just the impact, I think, that you can have as an individual on somebody else's life, and kind of the direction that you can give them to steer towards whatever it is that their heart desires. It doesn't have to be with the organization. It could be with other organizations in the world, or whether it's something that's very local or something that's like worldwide. So I think when it comes down to that, that's also shaped kind of how I approach inspiring other individuals to go into STEM fields, because it's very linked, I think, like the idea of mentorship and being able to inspire other individuals to pursue different things. And when these youth members, I would say, or young girls come to STEM like programs and stuff, I think the message that I want to get across is you don't have to go into STEM. And I know that's a little bit roundabout, but I think what I would rather they get out of STEM programming and out of just any leadership programming or any programming is the ability to be confident in the things that you do, and the ability to take ownership of a specific task or wherever your goals lie. And I think that's a much bigger thing than telling somebody, oh, you have to pursue a specific field or you have to be involved in this organization. It's more so, what is that confidence that I can give to them to then pursue, use those skills, those soft skills, to then bring it out into the rest of the world.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, that sounds like such an amazing story, honestly. And I think having a mentor makes such a big difference. And you know what you're doing is absolutely amazing, and we have really love that. So I guess focusing a little bit more on that in like high school and stuff. So for any students who sort of don't know what they're doing or are unsure about their future paths, what sort of advice would you give them in terms of exploring different interests, or finding different fulfilling directions?
Yeah, and I think my answer to this relates back to I guess the extracurriculars that I was a part of growing up. Really put yourself in different situations. And I think this is something that I think a lot of people take negatively, but always say yes. Like even if it's something that you're like, am I really going to like this? Is this really going to like spark my interest? You're never going to know unless you try. So definitely put yourself into this zone of, yes, I'm going to try it. If I don't like it, I will step back, which is sometimes hard to do given some of the opportunities that you get thrown at you. I think sometimes they're a little bit more long-term, and sometimes they're a little bit like easier to manage expectations. But my really true, I think, advice is like, try different things, like sign up for those free programming that are available in your community. really do the research to put yourself in different like types of shoes. And then you'll be able to figure out, okay, is this something I really like, or is it something that I hate? And I think that'll give you a lot of clarity in terms of where you want to be in life, or what things you like, and most importantly, what things you don't like, because I think that'll definitely help as well.
For sure, like you always need to be like open-minded and just be open to exploring all of these passions that you yourself probably didn't even know existed. And then by joining all of these activities, you kind of get to learn more about yourself as a person as well, and also get to meet all of these other new people. And moving on to the next question, considering your impressive background and internships that you've had over the years, what experiences or activities do you recommend high school students pursue to stand out and gain that valuable technical experience before they enter university, and especially in competitive fields like engineering?
This is a very good question, because I used to get this all the time when I was volunteering as an engineering ambassador with the university. And my answer always is that there's no right concoction of activities that will get you into like a specific university or a specific program. I think the things that make people stand out are, number one, their passions. Like if you can showcase that you are extremely dedicated, and either you've tried a whole bunch of different things and like you've stuck to two or three, or maybe you've stuck to two or three your entire life, but there's like other factors behind it. I really think that it just it's a matter of how you tell your story. And I think it's more focused on the person that you are versus the experiences or activities that you from a technical perspective bring. Obviously, I think if you're going to engineering, it's always a benefit if you are like joining the robotics team, or you've like taken a part in like math competitions, like that always helps. But I also do know friends and I like other family members who, did sports or like did music, and they were still, and like they never touched robotics. I never touched robotics. And I did very few math competitions in high school. But I still like am in engineering. And so I think it's a matter of, can you tell your story? Can you show that you're a good, like well-rounded individual? And I think that's the piece of advice I would always give, specifically for Waterloo engineering. The things that I've seen is, what can you show and bring to the table that shows that you will be a good engineer and that you are a well-rounded individual at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, that's really great advice. And I wish somebody had told me that, because I was freaking out applying now. And, more than anything with like my friends and stuff, we've noticed that like quality over quantity,
Exactly.
it's more about what you've done than, how many things that you've been in. And I know people who've joined everything, but, it's just not as meaningful sometimes when your experience is diluted. So I think that's some
Exactly.
really great advice. So sort of piggybacking back onto volunteering. So for you, obviously, it's not just a hobby, it's a great passion. So how are you able to integrate your passion of volunteering with your studies and career aspirations?
Yes, this is a good question. Sometimes it's not easy to embed them together, and sometimes it is. I think things such as like volunteering with engineering outreach at the University of Waterloo, that's a great way to embed like my love for STEM and like the vision I see for the world of like having more women in STEM with the kind of things that I'm studying and the work that I'm doing. Whereas Girl Guides is a little bit out of the limb in a sense of like my role on the board is, it doesn't really relate back to tech, but it relates to, I think, something that I'm deeply passionate about, which is empowering young girls to be the best version of themselves and let them explore the world how they would like to see it. So I would say like it's not always easy, I think, when you are trying to combine volunteering with all the other things going on in life. But I really do believe that for me, it's like I put a lot of emphasis on what is it that I like to do and like what do I want to spend my time focused on, and then identifying those two or three focuses and then making time for them. Because I think it's way more important to be able to pick and choose your passions and then organize your time around it than it is to say, okay, these are all the 10 million things I need to do, and then budget time accordingly. So when it comes to integrating them together, I think in some ways it's easy and in other ways it's a little bit difficult. But I think if you want to make the time for it, it's always possible.
For sure. And then building off of that time management aspect, you're involved in various activities such as being an outreach commissioner and a women in engineering peer mentor alongside work and school. And so with your involvement in volunteering, studying, and all of these various activities, how do you manage your time effectively and maintain that balance?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I get it a lot. I think, and on top of that, I would like to say that I still manage to get my 7 hours of sleep every night. I try to do that as much as I can. So I think like some of the roles that you had mentioned were I think peak university season for me. Like those were roles that I held probably in the middle, like second or third year, all together at the same time. And I think there's a couple of things that I did to manage my time is number one, trying to make sure that I had an agenda with like my times booked in, and like scheduling is huge, making sure to book in time for myself and then time for all the things that I'm involved in. To-do lists are also very, very helpful when it comes to just thinking about, okay, these are 4 or 5 different roles that I have. What do I need for each of them? And just taking the time to jot it down and then going, okay, let me start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I think it relates back to, I think, what I've said previously on I am a strong believer that if you enjoy what you want to do, there is definitely time for it. You just have to make the time. And whether that means, spending less time on food, or whether that means less time on sleeping or less time on like meeting with your friends. I think some of my friends will attest to the fact that there's multiple times where I'm like, sorry guys, I have a meeting. But I think it's a balance. And some weeks you'll have more of one than others. Like there's certain weeks, especially during midterms or finals, where it's like, okay, it's just studying. Let me cancel all my other volunteering things. But then there's also times where it's like, okay, school's a little bit light. Let me pile on so I can prep for when exams come around. So it's a balance. I think you need to understand what your limits are and what your priorities are. But also make sure that those around you also understand that as well at the same time. And managing expectations is big.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like we've all noticed that in a team, it's really important. And making sure you're not taking on too much because that's also become a problem for some other people.
Right.
But earlier you sort of mentioned that, you really love volunteering and especially mentoring other students who've sort of been the same, like, you know where, you were at their spot once in a while. So for you specifically, do you have any role models like at school or in your personal life who they continue to basically inspire your journey as a student and innovator?
So many. I think starting local and starting at home, like I think my mom is a huge role. I think my parents are a huge role model as immigrants to Canada. I think that teaches you a lot about not only like working hard, but also I think just being present as well. And the struggle I think that comes with being like a first generation immigrant, I think is that's always huge. And I think those are some life lessons that I don't know if I'll be able to pass down to future children or future generations, because I think it's sometimes those lessons are hard. Like sometimes you have to be there, but I think role models wise, my parents are huge. I think the work that they've done, the struggle that they've gone through, I think is immense. And to at least get to the position that we are in today, or at least to give me the opportunities that they provided, I think required a lot of hard work. And so I think starting close to home is there. Within guiding, I've had so many leaders. It's insane. Like I think there's even today, I would say there's 5, 6, 7 individuals who I'm constantly in touch with from a guiding perspective on just where I want to be in the future, and kind of the direction that they provided me. From university, I have many professors. Funny enough, for my master's, I had 3 professors, all who either have taught me in some way, shape, or form, or have like mentored me in some way. And they are the reason that I got the master's that I'm doing right now, is because one said, why don't you consider it, led me to 2 or 3 other professors. Those 2 led me to another 2 or 3. And then it was like I would say a umbrella of individuals who'd supported me there. So yeah, I think if I were to write every single one down, I think it would be very difficult. And like I would say, like my elementary school teachers as well. I think there's 2 or 3 that come to top of mind, where they definitely paved the way of creating the leader that Andrea is today. And so I think I'd encourage everybody, I think whoever's watching this interview, to think about all the people that have shaped who you are today, and kind of list them all out and try visiting them or contacting them again, because I think sometimes they don't realize the impact that they've had until you kind of go back and you're like, hey, like I know I haven't talked to you in a while, but this is where I am now, and I want to like just say thank you. I've done that with a couple of like middle school teachers recently, and it's a very overwhelming feeling, or it makes you feel good, I think, and it also makes them feel good to go back to your roots and really acknowledge the role models that have made you who you are today.
Absolutely. And then also going off of like the aspect of then bridging that passion to also like purpose, and then creating like impactful projects for other aspiring leaders and change makers, what advice do you have on seeking out and leveraging opportunities that align with their passions and goals? Because especially today, a lot of people find it really hard to actually find these opportunities where they can apply their interests and also like seek new skills as well. And so what's your approach on finding these opportunities?
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point to make, because I think a lot of people have asked me this as well. And for me, it's like Google is your best friend in like more ways than one. Like, for example, I think to like writing different variations of what you're interested in, I think Google is always the first place I start when I'm like, what other opportunities are out there for me to kind of go and take part in? The second piece I would say is ask networking. I am not the greatest networker out there. I'll put it up front. But I think being able to go to an event or like seek out opportunities that are connected to the things that you're passionate about, and actively going to those events and like connecting with the people that are at that table really helps in terms of putting yourself out there. And it doesn't even have to be, I think, an event that I would say is like completely full of strangers or random individuals that you don't know. I think one of the recent experiences I had was wasn't necessarily interviewing for this position, but I was asked to take part in this specific opportunity. I ended up saying no to that opportunity because of time constraints, but that there was another individual on that call who was offering me it, and she was like, oh, like I didn't know you were an engineer. And then I was like, no, I am an engineer, and like this is the work that I do. And she's like, well, I'm looking for exactly those type of people. And so I made that connection, and who knows where it's going to go. But I think, being able to connect and be able to share your story and network and make connections with people also is equally as important as being able to kind of go on to and find these opportunities on Google or at these events, because I think that connection is what's going to make people remember you and then consider you for future events or future opportunities that come your way.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know networking, especially like a lot of the jobs my parents have gotten haven't been through like applying, but have just been through like the people that they know. And it's like it's really an amazing skill, but I feel like a lot of people are scared because they might not want to come off as like overbearing or like too
Right.
much. But I think if you like master it and you're good at it and you find your sweet spot, it's truly something that can do wonders for you. And I
For
think
sure.
it's worked out for a lot of people. So again, like you mentioned, like your passion, using your passion for tech to make a positive difference in the world. So are you able to sort of give us an example of a project or an initiative that you feel technology has the potential to make a significant positive change?
Yeah, and this is a good question. I'm actually this, I guess the project that I'm going to share right now is what I'm working on my master's on, which is personalizing robots with like different behaviors so that they are customized to a person's, like an individual's personality per se. So personalizing the robots so that it is something that is compatible with you as an individual. And this has, obviously, I think there's ethical considerations here, but I think it also has a lot of benefits when it comes to looking at elderly individuals and companion robots. Also robots that'll help them kind of take on day-to-day tasks that may be difficult or a little bit cognitively straining, I would say, or straining from a cognitive sense. And so I think this is kind of the reason I went into mechatronics, was to ultimately get to this spot, right? Of creating technology or understanding or being able to put research in place that helps so that we can create devices that ultimately will help a population at one at one point in time. And obviously, I think creating robots with personalities is a long ways away. I think there's many, many years to go, but any research is better than having no research when it comes to using technology for social good and in social situations for helping vulnerable populations such as elderly or young children and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And the last question, in your role as a mentor, how do you approach guiding others hoping to pursue a similar career path, as well as personal growth? And what advice do you commonly share with mentees?
Ooh, this is a very good, I feel like all these questions have been great. But I would say when it comes to mentoring others, the best thing you can do is listen. I think not everybody is going down the same path as you are, and not everybody comes from the same lived experiences that you are. And this is something that I have been really trying to be more aware about when it comes to me doing my own personal development and things like that, is really understanding that not everybody comes from the same mindset or the same place, and not everybody has the same lived experiences. So it's very important to kind of put your experiences to the side and really get as much information from your mentee as to, what they are hoping to pursue. And even if it's a similar career path to me, just listening to them and seeing like, okay, what is it that they need specifically? When it comes to advice to commonly share with mentees, again, like I think I've mentioned a couple, but I would say always say yes to opportunities, really take the time to reflect and identify what your priorities are and where you would want to spend your time, and really take charge in considering, is this really something that I want to do, or is this something that society is telling me to do? I won't say that I've cracked that nut yet in terms of like balancing the act, but I think it's always very important to have that reflection piece of what is it that I really want to do with my life, or these aspirations that I have, and how am I going to get there, and creating that plan for yourself based on the lived experiences that you have, the knowledge that you have, and moving forward and the journey that you hope to see. And then reevaluating, because obviously the decisions that I made 10 years ago are not the same decisions I would make today, but obviously those decisions have shaped who I am today. But it's always important to take baby steps, I guess, in your learning development and your career growth or your personal growth.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for these amazing answers. I think there's a lot to unpack. But now we can move on to something a little more different and a little bit more fun. And I think a lot of our favorite rounds. So we're going to do our rapid fire. So we're just going to quickly go through these questions. And then just say the first answer that pops into your head. All right.
Sounds good.
So awesome. So we're going to start off. What's your go-to productivity hack?
To-do list.
Okay, and what's your favorite quote or mantra?
Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Awesome. All right. And favorite hobby outside of work?
Volunteering. I don't know if that's a hobby, but in my eyes.
No, it for sure is. Bucket list item you want to achieve in the next 5 years?
Visiting 30 countries by the time I turn 30. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm manifesting it.
All right, awesome. We'll be manifesting for you as well. Favorite mechatronics project that you've worked on so far?
It would probably be a knitting robot made out of like Lego. It was the first year project, but lots of fun.
Oh my God, that sounds great.
What's your pre-interview ritual?
Not looking at anything and sitting on my phone and scrolling through Instagram so I don't stress out myself.
Sometimes that's the best way, and honestly, just not thinking about it. Yeah. Most inspiring women in your life?
My mom, for sure.
And the most memorable moment from your university years?
Ooh, I think anytime my friends and I were studying together. Well, not to say that we were studying, but there's like we have a specific table where we all would sit together, and that was our place to hang out and study and like chat at the same time. So
all right, awesome. So what's the best piece of career advice you'd give your freshman self?
Don't say no to all opportunities that maybe don't fit your bill of like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like step out of your comfort zone, try new things.
Awesome. And what's the most interesting book that you've read recently?
Ooh, Oh, I think it would be it's called Life Pass, and Payal Kadakia, I think is her name. Very, very insightful, has kind of shifted the way that I reflect on my personal goals.
All right, and our last question, and I know you talked a little bit about making robots. So if you could invent a robot for any task, what would you make it do?
Probably take the phone out of my hands, because I am a serial scroller. So something to like not touch my phone, I think would be great.
For sure. Or like just even having a person to talk to, I think that'd be huge.
Yes.
All right, and as our final question that we have how do you see the intersection of diversity, particularly the inclusion of women and technology shaping the future of STEM fields? Considering your involvement in women in engineering, what steps do you think can be taken to promote more inclusivity, breaking down barriers, and encouraging greater representation of women in mechatronics and engineering disciplines?
This is a big question. But I think to answer the first part, diversity is what is going to make us go faster and accelerate technology. I think by including more opinions, more thoughts, more ideas, technology is just going to increase further than having the same individuals or same individuals with the same backgrounds kind of sitting and saturated together. And I would say in terms of steps to be taken to promote more inclusivity, I really think it comes in multiple phases. I think number one, encouraging more individuals to take on, or not take on, but like at a young age, like introducing STEM fields. But I think when you come to engineering or doing university, making it a more inclusive space and actively combating some of this gender stereotypes that exist. Because I think that can be done in more ways than one. I think from looking at looking at not necessarily what we can do better, but understanding how we can create a more supportive environment, but also engaging in dialogue, I think is great as well. And then I think last but not least is like, yes, your university years are great, but then translating that into the workplace, because the workplace can be just as bad in terms of gender inequality as university could be. And I think being able to take the learnings at a young age and pushing that towards your entire journey from like a learning perspective and then a career path, I think that's going to be huge. And so definitely focusing in on education at a young age, and then encourage and making sure that there's the right programs and supports in place, that learning and engagement just doesn't stop when you're young, that it continues on throughout your university and then your workplace.
Yeah, for sure. That's like, honestly a great answer. And I think also having like role models or like representation that women can look up to, I think makes a really big difference, especially for a lot of younger, students.
Mhm.
And yeah, that basically was our final question. And this basically concludes episode 3 of our Spark podcast. A big thank you to Andrea once again for taking the time to share her experiences. So, Andrea, are there any social media sites that people can, I guess, follow you on or reach out to you on if they have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my Instagram would probably be the best. It's just Andrea underscore Chakma. It's public, so I think everybody can access it. But always more than happy to help any individual, whether that's like reviewing resumes or helping to write AIFs, because I know at Waterloo Engineering that's big. But just if there's any questions as well, would be more than happy to help.
All right, for sure. So thank you so much once again. For all our viewers listening and watching, make sure to follow all of our Instagrams to stay updated for our next episode and just to see who we bring on next. So thank you so much. Have a great night. And this is Spark signing out.